So meditation can sometimes be described accurately as a confrontation or a collision with the past. And I'd like to spend a few minutes talking about that because I think it's an overlooked, or can be an overlooked aspect of what we're doing here. If we go back to the neuron basis of things, each neuron as it fires carries a bit of information. That information isn't spontaneous. It's coming from something, it's carrying information, a residue of what has been. Each neuron is evoking a particular response to how a situation unfolded in the past. That's the message it's carried. It can't carry a new message. It carries what has been, right? Part of what it carries is you. You and I, the sense of self, is formed from the past, from what we know life to be, the knowledge base we know it from, the interactions that we have played out, and then we intercede in an organized way through the present with our past memories in place and our past actions and our habits and our conditioning. In traditional Buddhist language, that's called sanskaras, or conditioned tendencies. But it's everything. It's not just something that arises once in a while. It's everything. It's how we perceive. It's how we hold the cognitive map of what is arising. It's our actions. It's virtually everything we do. And the perceptions we see and interact with are also perceptions that are held within the past, within a haze of similar situations from the past. So we know a tree because we've seen trees before, even though we haven't seen that specific tree. That neuron carries a message that that's a tree. And so we see kind of a veil, or there's a veil through which we perceive the world. That veil is what I'm calling the fixed paradigm of self. And it's a thought streaming because it bases itself entirely on the past and past perceptions. It relies upon thought streaming for its navigation. I know where I am. I know where I need to be. I better start planning. In the past, I didn't plan, and this is what happened, so I've got to plan now, on and on, like that. And we just continue to thought stream our way through. And this is the way we navigate. This is the way we maneuver through now, with a capital N. We don't really actually see now, not in its glory. To do that, we'd have to switch paradigms. We see it through the haze of what the neuron's message has been. And then if we don't like the now of the neuron's message, we argue with it, which we do all the time. Oh, that's the old pain I had in my knee, and I remember it happening the last time I was sitting. Damn, what am I going to do? That's the interplay, right? That's the argument we continue to lace upon life. So what's meditation? Meditation is a cleansing of that process. It's an attempt to allow you're not going to keep the neurons from firing, so we're not anti-neuron here. Sounds like Star Trek, doesn't it? Anti-cleons. So we're not in some alien combat. We're just realizing that there's nothing, the mind offers no news from the mind. Just old, worn out reruns. No news from the mind. Okay, so where's the news going to come from? Well, you don't look for news, first of all. Because news is what has been, isn't it? It's the newspaper. It carries the story that happened that day, right? So we can't look for the cognitive mapping of what's arising. So it takes a great deal of courage, really, to step out of this mapping, because our entire programming has been around this mapping. We know ourselves from our mapping. How do you know yourself? You know yourself because what you've done in comparison to others in the past. All of that. Your abilities in relationship to, all of that. Say, wow, well, what would I be without all of that? I'm not sure I want to go into this new paradigm, is the hesitation. But no matter where we start, we're going to start seeing the past arise within practice. Because that's what the mind carries. Now, here's the key. If we listen to what's arising, which is the past, from me, which is the past, I am now impacting or interacting with the past from the past. And reconditioning, right, the model back into itself. Okay? So that's my opinions. Where are my opinions formed? That's my judgment. Where are my judgments formed? Those are my ideas about what I should do, what I need to do, what I have to do. Even the idea of me. But that's in seclusion from the present. We try to keep that one back there so we can preserve it. We want our cake. We don't want the past. And we want to eat it too. We want to keep ourselves very much alive. But we can't keep ourselves very much alive and really deal completely with the past because the sense of self is the past. Whoa. What am I going to do now? Well, we have to learn very early on how to deal with the past from the present. Now, this present isn't the present that the past is made of it. We don't even know what the present is because we have it so covered, so infiltrated with our neurological reminders of what everything is, that we really don't even see the present. We just kind of go through the present on our way to the future, which is the payoff of what the past offers. It offers perhaps the potential of a new future, rather than to have to suffer the way I did in the past, you see? So we have to be clever to all of that. And so what is more clever, what is wiser, I don't mean clever in terms of, what is wiser than silence, than stillness? Because it holds nothing. It holds nothing of the past. Or it wouldn't be still. It would be a neuron firing. Now the neurons are going to continue to fire, but they can fire within the embrace of stillness. It's like watching a fireworks display. Right? It's within the frame of the sky. It doesn't hold the whole. So within the frame of stillness, the past is permitted access. But it's not carried forth. We don't take the idea and keep moving it forth through our reactivity, which is the normal way the self does. It takes the past, the conditioning, and moves it forth. Well, that's what I'm supposed to do, because that's the only thing I have done. It's the only way I know myself. Of course I'm going to do that. And so it just moves the past through the present into the future. So in stillness, in quiet, we allow the past, it's like firing blanks instead of real cartridges. It still comes up, it can't go forward. So emotions, thoughts, reactivity, virtually the whole content of consciousness are neurons firing. But neurons can't touch awareness. A fireworks display cannot touch the sky. It happens within the sky, but it doesn't affect the sky. And so too, awareness is untouched. So the less we invest in the firework display of the neurons firing, are you following all this? Yeah. The more the energy goes into what holds that display and doesn't move it forward. And that's our karma, our old karma. Neurological display is just karma, another word for karma, which I don't particularly like because it carries it's too ancient. And it simply dies. And there's only so much momentum behind that neurological display. There's only so much it can, and it keeps getting reinforced because we keep acting on it and reasserting a new momentum to it and keep moving it forward. But in awareness, it doesn't have any new strength. I sometimes, the image I have is sitting in front of a cave, at the mouth of a cave, facing out from the mouth of the cave. And then the bats from the early morning are flying out, right? And we're just sitting there, and all the bats are in the open mouth of the cave. And we're not moving with the bats, we're just letting them fly out. Okay? That conditioning is also bodily conditioning in terms of our actions, because there's a direct correspondence to the ideas we have and the actions we take. And so all of that is also what flies out, so I'm not moving. And you can feel it, because what it feels like is space. It doesn't feel like, oh, I've got to do this. So it feels very differently than what we have known our life to be. And that often is so unsettling. This doesn't feel right. It's not what it used to be. And we think, oh, I'm going crazy, which is the mind's argument to get back into its thought pattern. I've got to re-engage myself to find myself again, which is the mind's argument again. So the mind's full of good arguments to get you back into the conditioning. It's not going to feel like, it's going to feel like space. It's going to feel like not knowing. See, just bring spiritual logic to this. If all of the neurons contain the knowing, then the space doesn't contain the knowing. And so you're not going to be full of knowing. What you will be full of is full of wonder. Right? The space has intelligence. It's just not thought intelligence. And so the bats will be flying out. And our job is just to open the mouth of the cave wide enough to let all the bats out. Well, it doesn't matter. What does it matter what you feel? There is no truth, absolute truth. There's relative truth, but there's no absolute truth to any emotion. No absolute truth to any thought. There's relative truth. I need to get to the airport on time. But we give relevance, we give absolute truth to every one of the neurons firing. And 99.9 are insane neurological firings. Because they all been conjured up from reaction from one another. Oh, I know her. She must be thinking, I've met her before. Oh, last time we didn't have such a good meeting. I bet she remembers that. Oh, and now she's thinking the same thoughts that I'm thinking. Oh my God, I don't. Let those bats out. Closing the cave just keeps them circulating in there. Let them out. Let them out. As if it mattered what you're thinking of me. If it mattered what I think of you. What difference does it make? It's just my insanity. So emotions, be very aware emotions don't circumvent that, because emotions really have a more powerful influence on us than many thoughts. They're in tandem with one another. But when we feel an emotion, many of us say, that's the intuitive side of me. That's nonsense. Intuition has nothing to do with your emotional, it has to do with something else entirely. It has to do with the intelligence of the space. But we give much more credence to this emotion. Just let the emotion go. See if there's an intelligence that's inherent in the space that will navigate us through life and also provide the discernment necessary for our protection. But we have to be quiet. And quiet isn't counter to noise. It's not in contrast. It's not in conflict to noise. If it's in conflict to something, then you can be assured that you're using a neurological firing, a memory of a time when my mind was quieter than it is now, and therefore this needs to shut up. And therefore you have infighting. You have bats going after each other and going after, right? Enough of that. This is the quiet beyond the bats. This is the quiet that the bats fly in through, that can't be touched. Right? This is a quiet that only comes from divesting our energy into each and every bat that flies out. And then it opens into space. Okay, y'all.